I get asked all the time, how can you, as a therapist, sit and listen to people talk so much, right? How can you listen to them pour out their problems and talk about how they feel? And to be honest with you, sometimes I wonder, how do I do it myself? Well, let me tell you something right now. Empathy isn't always a superpower, okay? While it's a beautiful thing to have to understand the life path of another person, how their reality, to understand more so, we'll get into that, but to understand how their reality plays a key role in the way that they think, the way that they feel, and the way that they behave. That's a lot. And despite the challenges, there's a dark side to being empathetic. And again, empathy isn't always a superpower. It's not. It's not always a superpower. So, with that being said, I want to make it very clear. I love what I do. I love being a therapist. I love working with other human beings and helping them achieve their best, helping them see something in themselves that they are overlooking. Not that they didn't see it, they're just overlooking it. Or they may haven't been conscious of it because their attention was diverted somewhere else. So they weren't truly in alignment with who they are. I love what I do. However, with everything, whether you're a doctor, whether you're a lawyer, whether you're a barber, whether you're a rapper, no matter what you may be, there's always a dark side to it. And sometimes the media, other therapists, give this idea that being a therapist means you have to have this got it together attitude, that you have life figured out, that you are always in a positive, upbeat mood. No. Being a therapist means that I'm present for you, I'm listening to you, I'm attentive to you, I'm attending to your feelings, I'm attending to your thoughts, I'm attending to your mood, and most of all, I am actively listening for meaning, context. I'm clarifying, I'm paraphrasing, I'm reflecting on what you're saying. I am making sure I got it. Because if you're going to come to a therapist and that person is going to be a soundboard for you, then by all means, they need to be present. Now, there's a beauty, and that's in itself is the beauty of it. But no, there's an actual beauty. And much of what I'm talking about speaks about connection, human connection. There's a magical thing in connecting with a human being on a psychological and emotional level, to the point where you understand their pain, their frustrations, what they've been through. And gosh, I've met a lot of different clients. I've met a lot of different people throughout my career, throughout my life, and many, matter of fact, many of whom have stuck with me when I go home. when I go to my personal life, when I'm to myself, um, many of whom have stuck with me. And the connection that I've made with them, I'll never forget the lessons that I've learned. But the beauty of it all, to get back to that point, the beauty of it all is that there's a connection. And to build that connection means that I am striving to understand them at a deeper level. And my goal is to build rapport, like with any relationship, or any relationship should. Strive to build rapport, strive to seek understanding, strive to build trust. Because without trust, what is any relationship? However, in building trust, you should also build understanding. And once you build understanding, then you're on your way. You are definitely on your way to fostering a sense of meaning with another human being. Again, that's a good thing. That's the good thing about being a therapist. And in many ways, and I'm just going to broaden this out, not always about being a therapist. Um, I would extend this to any of the healing professions or helping professions, whether you're a life coach, whether you're just someone who's present for another human being, period. That's a part of being a healing professional. To know that you are present and that you are there for your client or the person that is divulging deep information into you. That's very important. So, good thing about being an empathetic person is knowing how to strengthen that connection, knowing how to build trust, and through trust, build understanding, and then grow through that understanding to see life from somebody else's or another person's perspective. Now, the dark side. Let's not forget, there's always a dark side, right? What would life be without light and dark? So, the dark side is the struggle. This is the emotional exhaustion that you feel in knowing that this is a human experience. This is the life of someone else who wakes up every day like you do. They breathe, they eat, they live, they pay bills. Some of them don't pay bills, but nonetheless, this is a living, breathing being just like you. And life isn't always a bed of roses. There's, yes, I would be lying if I said there's not a bit of emotional exhaustion, psychological exhaustion that goes along with that. Because when you hear how other human beings struggle, how they suffer, how they have suffered, the choices they've made throughout their lifetime, it can be heavy. It is heavy. And at times, to add to that, as far as the dark side is concerned, you have emotional, what I say, emotional exhaustion. Then you have blurred boundaries sometimes because while your therapist is not your friend, I don't consider myself friends with my clients. There's a unspoken friendship though that, and more so you're being friendly, but there's an unspoken friendship that develops. And any therapist who I believe is a good therapist, and granted my opinion is just that, my opinion, um any therapist who's a good therapist strives to make themselves personable with their client, hands down. And sometimes there's a blurred boundary of conversation. Sometimes clients can get a little too comfortable because that's the goal. You want your client to feel comfortable with you. And again, this goes for any profession, whether you're a doctor, whether you're a lawyer, whether you're a barber, whether you're a rapper, you want the end receiver of your services to know that you have their best interests in mind for the service that they came to you for. And that is what I will do with my client each and every time. I'm not gonna be the therapist who's stiff and not personable, try not to get to know you, not to know your children, not to know what makes you what brings you joy, not just what makes you tick or make you think. I want to know what brings you joy. What does your life consist of? Even if it's just you and your cat, you and your bird, you and your goldfish, it doesn't matter. I want to know. But there's sometimes a blurred line where clients um, they get comfortable, and in that sometimes, as all human dynamics go, I as a therapist want to be. I am comfortable, and I allow myself to self disclose. Self disclosure is something that we do to express that we too understand the human experience as therapists, and we would like for our clients to be understanding that we understand. My interpretation, of course, my understanding of self disclosure. Um, hmm. The dark side of empathy can't be spoken about without acknowledging empathetic or empathic, so to speak, um, distress. These are moments for me, at least, where I feel an overwhelming desire to just wail and cry myself with my client. I feel it in my gut. You know, you're hearing or if I'm hearing someone's story and it's just gut wrenching from their side, and depending on if they're telling someone else who's involved with their situation, it's gut wrenching from both angles. So, um, hmm, empathic distress to me is that, truthfully, it's either an outright sense of countertransference, and for those who don't know, countertransference. Excuse me, it's late. Countertransference is when your client puts their emotion back onto you, and you take on those emotions. So if that individual is talking about the loss of a loved one, and that loss is one that you can resonate with. If their loved one had cancer and your loved one had cancer, it brings back all of those feelings that you had when you lost your loved one. So those three things are, to me, the dark side of empathy as a therapist. Yeah. Emotional exhaustion, um, blurred boundaries. That's two. Three would be empathic, or as I said, empathetic or empathic distress. Those three things are the dark sides. Now, mm, I guess the light side to the struggle would be, if you're struggling with something, then I would say the light side would be how do you cope? What are your coping skills now? And I'm speaking strictly for me, and I'm also sharing these things. If you happen to be a life coach, again, or any other discipline that is involved with helping other people through their struggles, then learning these coping skills that I'm speaking about or learning certain jargon that I'm talking about is helpful. You can use this in your profession or in your whatever that might be. Even if you're the mailman, you can understand counter transference from that perspective. You go to bring someone their mail, they're not in a good mood that day, they cuss you out. Now they've put their energy on you and you carry this energy, and next thing you know, the next mail stop you go to, you're in a funk, you're in a bad mood. So just remember that anytime that you're dealing with the end user or customer or client, everything I'm mentioning is pertinent, especially if it requires you to show some form of empathy. And if you happen to be an empath, especially, especially if you happen to be an empath. So, but again, to the light, how do you cope when you go through the emotional exhaustion, the blurred boundaries, the empathic distress? How do you cope? Well, obviously, as professionals, no matter where you're at, no matter what level you're on, as a professional, you need to learn boundaries. You need to know there's a point even in your session where you need to draw the line of what you're sharing. You know, there's certain types of self disclosure that you'll probably be better off not talking about, because not only is it triggering, it just, you now have blurred the professional boundary. And that is not a good look. So you don't want to put yourself in that space, because it maintains professionalism, it maintains ethical standard, and you don't want to do any harm to your client emotionally, psychologically. That is why they came to you in the first place. So you don't want to do that. So you need to draw a boundary for yourself that checks the boxes of professionalism as well as ethical standards. My thoughts. Um, hmm. Let's talk self care. Self care is big. How do you take care of yourself? Do you go to the gym? Do you talk to friends? Well, that's more so on the support system, which is going to be my next point. But self care, how do you take care of yourself? Do you go to the gym? Do you get massages? Do you have a spiritual practice? How do you eat? Do you sleep well? Um, how's your grooming? Do you take care of your hygiene and grooming very well? What do you do that brings you joy that others cannot fulfill for you? That is very important. So self care is a part of coping. That's a coping, not just necessary for hygiene and grooming and just daily upkeep, but it's also something that is very important to maintaining your own emotional and mental stability. Um, Third, so first we talked about boundaries. Two, self care. Three, we're going to talk about, at least I'm speaking as a licensed mental health counselor or licensed clinical professional counselor. We have we have supervisors or go through supervision, and in doing so, going through supervision and having a supervisor, that is a colleague that we can have. And other people, I mean, you can have other colleagues as well, but at least I'm speaking for me again. I speak with my supervisor when I have a difficult situation with a client, whether that me and the client didn't understand one another, whether me and the client were um, just something didn't feel right in the session, I would consult with my supervisor, who would then let me know, check this box off, do this, try that, just so I can have a second opinion about my approach as a therapist. And let's just be honest, iron sharpens iron. So if you are a barber, if you're a doctor, if you're a lawyer, if you're the mailman, you the garbage man, there's always someone else in your profession that you can consult with, who you can run something by, just to give you feedback about how you're performing, how you're doing. That would be a wise decision to make for anybody, but in particular as it pertains to being a therapist, that is something that is absolutely necessary to do. And having a support system, that's the second part of it, having a supervisor who you can consult with, or I can consult with. Um, Having a strong support system is absolutely necessary. Without a support system, what do you really have? You're going to really be struggling, because you can only talk to your supervisor so much. For me, I talk to my partner, and I get a lot of insight as well, and not just my life partner, but friends of mine, many of whom also have worked in the mental health field at some capacity or another. Um, so having a circle of friends, having a circle of family or others that you can relate to as it pertains to what you're doing, what you're going through, the stress you may be feeling, when you have that emotional exhaustion, when you uh, feel like a line may be blurred, if you have some empathetic or empathic distress of any sort, it helps to have people that you can lean on. Okay. So I've covered the good or the beauty of it all. I've also shared with you the dark side. I've also shared with you, excuse me, I'm blocking the camera. Share with you the good or the beauty, the dark side, the struggle, as well as the light side, and that's how you cope. Now, I'm going to share a story with you, one that I felt touched me and impacted me. It didn't touch me, but it impacted me. It impacted me psychologically. Impacted me emotionally. I had the experience, or I had the opportunity to work in a correctional facility, and within a correctional facility, it's truly a world within a world. Anybody that's been incarcerated that may be watching this, they know exactly what I'm talking about. Similar to, I can relate only to the experience of being a veteran, being in the military. And when you're in the barracks, being on a military base is a totally different world. Granted, there's there's women there that we can coexist and mingle with. However, being in a prison full of men um, has its share of ups and downs. It's challenging. But as a therapist working inside of a correctional facility where you don't know who your client is going to be, you just get assigned clients to go see for the day. You go to their cell. Hey, you want to meet today? You want to come out your cell? No, I don't want to come out my cell. Some of them can be really disgruntled, and obviously so, right? But I had an opportunity to speak with a gentleman, and he was well spoken, well dressed, very articulate, well put together. Older gentleman, you could tell he worked out vigorously, but he always had an aura of, oh man, To be honest, I just be straight up. I cannot tell you. There's no words I could use to actually describe his energy. Excuse me. There's no way I could actually describe his energy. All I could say was that it was respectfully eerie. Respectfully eerie. I respected him, but he had an eerie energy about himself. So anyway, not to belabor my story, but yeah, he had a respectfully eerie energy. Now, the next part of this, I know some of my viewers or some viewers out there, whether you're mine or you're just watching just to be watching, um, this may not be, this individual may not be your type of human being that you respect, and I totally understand. I won't get graphic and I won't get into the actual crime. Well, I'm going to share with you the crime, but I'm not going to get into the details of the crime. How about that? I'm not going to get into that. That's his personal business, and what happened and line by line detail is none of my business. But he was sentenced for rape. And a lot of other inmates, a lot of people within our society, we detest rapists, individuals who have committed sexual assault. And I hope it's okay for me to use the word rape um, on this platform. I'll blurt out the word if it's an issue, but yeah. He was a inmate who had been sentenced for sexual assault in a nutshell. And when he told me his story and how he committed the offense, as a trained professional, all I could do was listen empathetically. That's right. I said empathetically. And I'm talking about a human being who sexually assaulted a woman multiple times, multiple times in that day. Now, to sit with an individual and listen to him tell this story, give me his narrative, I had to truly rely on not just my training for my program to become a licensed mental health counselor, but I also had to understand my humanity. Because in understanding my humanity, I was able to give my full attention to his life, his narrative, what brought him to the place of being that kind of human being. Because, yes, on both sides of the table, you have this woman who has been absolutely traumatized in ways that no human, unless you've been through that experience, no other human being can imagine unless you've been through that. And every experience, despite being in a similar experience, is always what different. It's always going to be different. However, on the flip side of that, there's the offender, there's the inmate. He's committed this crime knowingly. Now, why he did it, the conditions which he did it under, for the number of times that he sexually assaulted this woman, um, It's not my place to judge. It's not my place to judge. I can judge if I so chose to, but it is not my place to judge. Empathy and being able to put yourself in the shoes of someone else is absolutely a necessity, no matter who you are, no matter what you've done. It doesn't excuse the fact that you committed something heinous or you've done something heinous or done something that you're ashamed of and you can't bounce back from. No, it's not going to change that. But all human beings deserve empathy. Being able to be heard and to feel that someone else knows what it's like to be in your shoes. Every human being deserves that. So if you can allow yourself the time and the space to not just only understand the humanity of what you view as the victim or the good, because that's the innocent party. They did nothing, right? They didn't ask for this. She didn't raise her hand and say, "Hey, come pick me." No, that didn't happen. This person was victimized, and it was not. It wasn't. It wasn't. It wasn't a beautiful story about line for line what happened. But at the same time, the inmate, the offender, had their own share of pain too. He had his own share of trauma prior to the offense. He had a story of life that if he happened to have had the proper intervention before the offense, then maybe he would have had more than enough time to rehabilitate himself and correct his errors before things went totally wrong. Things just don't happen. But that story, the story that, in detail that the offender shared with me, that stuck with me. Because of course, the victim could have been my wife. The victim could have been my life partner. The victim could have been my daughter. The victim could have been my mother or just a woman in my family that I hold dear, um, a close friend, and so on. I mean, the possibilities are endless of who it could have been close to you. But just imagine that. And you have to sit in front of an individual and have empathy for them. And do I have to have it? Guess I don't have to have it. But understand something. My have to have empathy is not only based on I have to have a job. I'm empathetic because quite possibly I am an empath. I'm an undeclared empath. I feel very deeply. Like was that song? My Philosophy by Kara's One. I think very deeply. I feel very deeply. Malik, he feels very deeply. Um, so I feel for the human experience, even if you squander your human experience, even if you've victimized someone else in their human experience, the offender has been abused, traumatized, affected, infected, and had became a product of their environment. So, um, enough of that. But I'm going to ask you all a very important question. And whether you think about it now, think about it later, turn it into a conversation piece of your own amongst you and your peers. Ask yourself, have you ever felt weighed down? Have you ever felt weighed down? Not just felt weighed down alone, but guess I should add to that. Have you ever felt weighed down in the attempt to be empathetic to another human being? And not get upset, not complain, not ask the person, oh, when you're going to get over it. Nah, I'm really meaning that you sit with another person as they're going through literal hell emotionally, psychologically, and in any other way known to man. Think about it. Have you ever felt weighed down when put in a situation where you, as a professional or even personally, had to be or needed to be empathetic? For me, this is the dark side of being a therapist. This is the dark side. However, there's a beautiful, for me, and again, I'm speaking for me, but there's a beautiful, beautiful part, beautiful component of being a therapist. I wouldn't trade this profession for any other one in the world. And let me let you in on a little secret. To all my ex-employers out there, I appreciated being on your payroll, but not just because I'm working for myself, but I guess, well, I guess that helps too. But at this point in my life, after obtaining my license to practice, I tell you something. I love what I do. I love it. I love it. If you yourself happen to feel that therapy may be beneficial to you and you would like to work on some things for yourself or just have someone to listen as you work through some issues that you may have. If you like my content and think that I may be someone that you could resonate with, please, by all means, feel free. I'm going to put a link at the bottom of this video, and you can find me on Growth Therapy. I'm on their portal. The link below will take you directly to my profile and book a session. Book a session. I would love to be a part of your journey. I love that you want to understand yourself and grow beyond your issues, if that's what we want to call it, concerns, what have you. If you like the video, like, comment, subscribe, and I'll definitely see you in the next video. Take care.